What's up? What's up? Welcome to the April 8th Training Talk Show 2021 with Barret, Kendrick, of course, Deryck, Poole. And as you can also see, we've got a special guest today, Don Edwards of Green Line Tactical. What's happening, everybody?
Same old, same old. How you doing, Don? I know you're a busy man.
Busy, man. You know, it's busy out there. Plus, you know, it's just like I've told you before, busy trying to make sure we stay busy too. Also, you know.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of things going on in the firearms industry, as you know.
Yeah, true fact. You know, it's obviously been a busy few weeks. It looks like it's going to be even busier, probably year on a lot of stuff going on. So, yeah, it definitely is. You can see that there's absolutely no separation in the video monitors between Deryck and I.
Yeah, you guys are co-located tonight, right?
You know, I'm, as you can see, at the Echo 5 headquarters with him for tonight, which we were kind of talking about it earlier, is that it seems like it's honestly been since like November or something like that, since I've actually broadcast live, you know, from my house or from, you know, my home location with it. It just seems to be that, you know, every course we've either been together, you know, up in Reno or, you know, in northern Florida. You know, obviously a few weeks ago for the March show, and then now I'm kind of bouncing around doing some things down Deryck's way. So we're here hanging out, my family, his family, delicious dinner tonight. But yeah, and you're not too far. Are you still in Florida today, or?
I'm in Jacksonville. Yeah.
Yep.
Just a hop, skip, and a jump from you guys right now.
Yeah, I actually drove through there. You know, we spent a few hours, you know, at least in the St. Augustine area here earlier this week.
Yeah, you can't drive through St. Augustine without wanting to stop for something, even if it's just lunch.
True fact. I had a package I had to pick up. I had a package I had to pick up, and you know, brought the kids. Wanted to go actually check out the home range there. You know, being at Ancient City Shooting Range, let them check it out. They were actually closed for the day, but we were able to, you know, sneak in. You know, kind of, sort of, you know, went in proper way anyway. But yeah, good times.
And some Bronco rides with Chuck.
Yeah, it's a Bronco rides with Chuck, the owner of the range.
Oh, there you go.
His cool points, you know, went up tremendously, you know, with my kids. You know, my young boys obviously riding around in a Bronco that is virtually
older than their dad.
Yeah, older than me, you know, by a couple of years, but yet in the condition like it came off the showroom floor last week. You know, fantastic vehicles, the stores that he does on them.
Yep.
Oh, but not older than me.
No, not older than Deryck.
So that means not older than you either, Don.
I think his are 68, which would make him the same age as me.
Yep.
Okay, so then it is older than me. Yes,
I don't know. 2 years. I don't know what years they are, but they remind me of the old Broncos.
Yeah.
True fact. Well, yeah, we should have an exciting show tonight. You know, we talked a couple of months back with Don on Red Dots, and this is going to be the version 2, the evolution of the show, where we'll kind of expand on that. That was kind of an introduction to it. But yeah, I'm kind of excited about the show. You know, obviously right now we are in April, which means that the PDN, I was getting ready to call it the training talk show, but the PDN, the training tour is actually officially started last month. Where, you know, multiple instructors, Don's a contributor, he was obviously part of the training tour, both Deryck and I are as well, you know, where multiple instructors are teaching at multiple places around the country with multiple course options, you know, whether it's doing the night vision with Don or the red dot handgun stuff with Don, or the carbine stuff, the handgun and rifle stuff with Deryck or I, or even getting into, I think Rob is running a couple of scenario days right now in Cape Cod.
Yep.
Which Toby's range. Yeah.
Toby's place.
Yeah, Toby's place. You know, I was up there late last year. One of the best indoor ranges I think that I've ever taught at in regards to soundproofing. You know, a state-of-the-art facility, but even the soundproofing between the ranges there was to such a degree that you didn't even really notice the shooting going on the other side of the wall, which is really hard to come by with an indoor range.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so we've got the training tour kind of starting up. What kind of classes do you have going on right now for the tour?
Man, it's getting ready to start getting busy, just like it is for everybody else. I have a night vision shoot house coming up in about a week and a half. And then I'll be back up to New England area, New Hampshire, Keene, New Hampshire, Cheshire County range, doing a red dot pistol class. And it seems like that's what I'm doing most of the spring is red dot pistol stuff like that. Come back home and head out to where am I going? Colorado. Rob Butler and his guys for some shotgun class, and then out to Vegas for some red dot pistol and some advanced carbine stuff. And then I'll be with Ken Crawford and those guys in Reno doing a red dot pistol class too at the beginning of June. So I'll be out west for quite a while.
That's cool. So when you go to Reno, are you going to be at Washoe County, or are you going to be at RGR?
I'll be at Washoe County range.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's a nice outdoor range to shoot
That's
at.
what I hear.
Yep.
Yeah,
I know Deryck, you talk there a lot.
Hold on to the targets in the afternoon.
Yeah.
But
be ready for like the 2:00 windstorm. Every time at 2:00 the wind starts, so make sure you got the targets anchored down by 2:00.
Okay, good advice. I'll bring extra staples for the staple guns.
and you got, I don't even know what they are, but you got all the little native lizards, is what I call them anyway, that live in all the little post holes on the range. They're always popping their head up, during the day.
Oh, yeah?
Always send pictures to the kids because they like that kind of stuff. But little, I don't know, miniature Komodo dragons.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Yeah, we got all kinds of stuff going on. I guess let's want to jump into the show topic with red dots tonight. Obviously,
Sure.
Don is one of the go-to guys. He was just kind of talking about, just about every single course he's doing as red dots as part of it, anyway. But where a lot of people are seeking him out, and simply because they're becoming, more and more popular. They've been around on the carbines and rifles, but becoming more and more popular for people to carry on the handguns. And many of y'all saw the show, and so we're not going to rehash everything that we talked about on the previous show. But I think it's probably important to give just a 2 or 3 minute description of just the introduction side of red dots for those people who are new to it. What's your 2 minute kind of intro on what people should consider coming into that game?
Right. And we've talked about this before. I don't know if we spoke on the previous episode, but the reason I know that red dot optics or optics on pistols is here to stay, it's a thing, is every manufacturer makes optics ready versions of their primary lineup. And almost everything now comes either or some of them just come optics ready. And that's it now. So the industry is listening to us on the firearms side, that people want this to be something they can do. The optics industry is now making miniature red dot optics specifically for handguns, not as an afterthought that could be put on a handgun. So the latest from Aimpoint was designed, the Acro P1 was designed specifically to be on a handgun to withstand the rigors of the slide going back and forth. Same with all the Hollow Suns, the latest from RMR. So it's here to stay, and it's going to keep getting better and better. It is. It's not, I guess, period. But there are some things you got to remember. And, one of it is mounting and getting it on there properly. Unfortunately, the MOS system has flaws in it. So there are good quality adapter plates that you can buy aftermarket to replace the ones that come with it, that fit in there better and are better quality, that are going to help your optics stay in place. And using things like thread locker to make sure that your screws are not going to work themselves loose. Make sure that you torque them to a good spec. Usually 10 to 15 inch-pounds is about right. It's about the same torque spec as most of our scope screws. Right. On our scope rings and scope mounts.
Yeah, enough to hold it, but not so much.
But a good thread locker is a good thread locker. The one I recommend and I've been using for a while is called Vibra-Type, and it comes from the aviation industry originally, and it's made for anti-vibration, so it's much more gummy instead of hard, and it just kind of helps keep that screw from turning when it's in there, and that's important. So you get it torqued right, but then also have that good thread locker in there to keep it from wanting to move, and you'll be good to go. And then just get it zeroed, and it's just a solid segue right in. It's my courses, and there's other guys that teach red dot specific pistol courses, have become popular because people are trying to figure it out, and especially those of us who have been shooting with iron sights for so many years. It's a little bit different. We want to do things a little differently, and guys that have figured out how to teach it to people have kind of figured out a way to shorten that learning curve, I guess, on how to do that. I don't know if you guys would agree. You guys spend a little bit of time with me on the range. That's always my goal is look, let's not change as much. Let's not change that much about how we shoot. I'm still a defensive and a tactical shooter, so I'm not going to, tell you to, do certain things, stand up straight and all that. But we do need to do certain things to make sure that we can see that dot and see what we need to see a little bit quicker, so we can make good solid hits. That's where I'm coming from. So, and it's just become a thing now.
It's definitely become a thing, and that's sort of why I said let's bring Don on for a second time, because we were just up there doing the Intuitive Defensive Shooting Instructor Conference, and Don did a special learning block for some of the guys that haven't had as many reps with the red dot, to give them the finer points, of, hey, this is what you should be looking for. This is how you should be instructing your students showing up with red dots, because they're showing up so much more often in any class, be it just a regular, hey, I want to get my CCW class, all the way through up to a red dot specific course.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I told Rob early on when I knew I was going to be in town during the conference that, hey, I want to, I'll give me some time to spend with the instructors that are there, because even if they're not going to adopt it for themselves and or not going to teach a red dot pistol class, they're going to have students show up with them. And, the more they know, the more they can help them out and get them through it, the better. And, that I feel like that's a responsibility we have as firearms instructors to understand the latest stuff that people are going to bring to our class, so that when we see it, we understand what the student may or may not be struggling with, or how that piece of gear is supposed to work, versus seeing it for the first time, when we're trying to teach somebody else how to be good with it.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, I started carrying one. I'm actually at about 2 years now. It started out as hey, you know what? I started seeing them more. I need to get better acquainted with it, carry it and let's see what happens. Because I carry a gun living here in Florida. I probably carry 90+% of the time gun on me. So I wanted to see, hey, you hear all these different myths, or you hear someone say, oh, you live in Florida, you're gonna be outside in the humidity, get in the car, and then all of a sudden you're gonna have an unusable gun because it's gonna fog up, which doesn't happen. But so that's why I started about 2 years ago.
Yeah, my sunglasses don't fog up when I get out of the car. It's not. I'm not going to say it couldn't happen, but some of those things aren't really the problem that some people were worried that they would be. But it does take a little bit more care and feeding. It does. It's not a bad idea to keep the lenses clean and maybe treat them with some anti-fog or something like that. That's just good. That's just prudent. Make sure that you maintain fresh batteries and stuff like that on a regular schedule. That's part of taking on the responsibility. You ride Harleys, right?
Oh, yeah.
You got to know how to turn wrenches and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. It's and like when we had the group out there showing us new cardboard 3-dimensional targets, and we took turns, going through a figure 8 on that, and I was carrying my red dot. Well, I hadn't looked at it in a while, and the first thing I get a call is a headshot. I pulled that thing out, and what did I have sitting on the backside of the glass was crappy lint. Yeah, so then I'm like, where's the dot? Where's the dot? And it's like this big starburst in front of me, and then I rushed it and shanked it. But it happens, and that was my own fault. Why? Because I didn't take the time, effort, and energy to actually stop and look down at my glass before I put the gun on that morning.
True fact. It's, with everything, you got to pay attention to it. It's not any different from taking the gun out and making sure that you've loaded it that morning prior to sticking it in the holster, right? That should be part of, that check, that evaluation that goes into getting the gun ready for use.
Yep.
Well, it's like everything. Like you said, you pull it out, you make sure it's loaded. You not only check the the lenses aren't obscured, but that the brightness is where you need it to be. If you carry a weapon-mounted light, you're going to check that to make sure that it's good to go. Or if you're carrying an everyday handheld light, you're going to check these things before you put them in your pockets. It's just part of it. It's just one more thing. And, unfortunately, some people are resistant to that. And that's okay. Iron sights still work. It's not like red dots of iron, or rendered iron sights irrelevant. But if you do choose to pick up the red dot optic, you do also need to take on a little bit of that responsibility, I believe, of the care and the feeding and the maintenance.
Absolutely.
True fact. We've got a question that came in, and I'll ask you, but I'm actually going to say something before you answer it. So Christopher is asking, as a traditional iron sight shooter, can I anticipate forming bad habits using red dot or reflex optics on handguns? So think about that thought for a second, and I want to go back and remind everybody that tonight's show sponsor is Primary Arms Online, the online store where you can pretty much find everything you're looking for, right? Anything in regards to firearms related. So we're sitting here talking about red dot optics. You're going to be able to find those there, or mounting adapters, or potentially they may even have a slide, red dot slides that are already milled, in stock, ready to ship as well, and probably everything else that you're looking for. They have built it to be the go-to place. You're familiar with the name already, Primary Arms. This is a new Primary Arms online store. And when you jump over to the website, if you want a discount, they've got a little pop-up, put in your email address and emailed pretty quickly a discount right to the inbox.
Yep.
Cool. So as a lifelong iron sight.
With that said, thank you for sponsoring the show tonight, Primary Arms Online.
A little bit of lag there. So as a lifelong iron sights shooter myself, no, I do not believe it switching over to a red dot is going to give you any bad habits. So there are just a couple secrets that you want to do to really change so that you can effectively pick up that red dot. One of them is just kind of like raising your chin up a little bit so that you're looking more directly at the back of the gun, therefore the back of the optic. So if you're doing that, you're still looking at the back of a set of iron sights and at a front sight as well. The only other thing that we really kind of change or tweak to it is on presentation, where a lot of us longtime iron sight shooters would elevate that front sight just a little bit so that we can catch it in our lower peripheral vision, if you will. I don't know if that's correct or not. Before we level it out in between the rear notch. You don't want to do that because you want to be looking directly at that glass at a 90-degree angle with your line of sight. So you want to drive that muzzle as straight at your intended target as possible. So the bottom line is this: if you didn't see the dot, your iron sights weren't aligned either. If your iron sights were aligned, then the dot is there. So no, and what the feedback I've gotten from students, they definitely feel that they are much better with their iron sights once they've taken the time to master the red dot. And a couple of them come back to me after doing some force on force where they were the role player and as like the bad guy and various things, and they swear up and down that they were so much better having done it before they trained in red dot and then again afterwards, that they were so much more aware of their shots and their hits and their hit potential and accuracy was going way up with a iron-sighted simunition or UTM pistol. So I really don't believe so, and I think there's a lot of little things about the red dot that actually refine our shooting techniques to make us better overall shooters.
Hey, and what you just said, like we have a comment that says you'll be a better iron sight shooter after a red dot, and you just reiterated
that.
Yeah. Yep. And I can attest to what you're talking about. Like I'm a long-time iron sight shooter, and when I first put a red dot on, I was noticing that distance, that 9 to 15 feet range, where I'm not even using sights, I'm just driving the gun out. I was noticing I was shooting high, and what I was actually doing was there was an old holdover of, even though I wasn't using sights at that distance when I had irons, I would drive the gun out with that muzzle slightly elevated so I could catch that front sight. And when I put the dot on, I was elevating it even more, trying to like subconsciously or not consciously like try to find that front sight post as I was driving it out, and that was just something I had to like work on to like get more of a level presentation as I was driving the gun out, keep the muzzle level and just drive the gun out.
Yeah, and I believe that the way that the techniques that I teach for the red dot are very consistent with the ICE program, the intuitive defensive shooting counter ambush style of defensive shooting that we do, especially for the up close. If you didn't need them to begin with, it's okay. You're going to make your hits. If you still see the dot, then now you're getting visual confirmation, which is nice. And as we back up, we add deviation control. It gets just better and better and better.
And the dot, we always say there's a psychological effect as you start backing away from the target. There's a psychological effect that we really can't account for. Of holy crap, that's kind of far away. But the dot seems to like mitigate some of that psychological effect of, oh my God, am I really going to be able to pull this off with irons? Whereas the dot, it's still dancing out in front of you, but it's dancing inside. If it's dancing inside of what you're trying to hit, it's as long as I apply enough trigger control, I'm going to get the hit I need to get.
Well, and then too, those of us, as our eyes start to get older, it gets harder and harder to get a clear, crisp sight picture with iron sights. And, even out to 20 to 25 yards, a lot of us can still see it well enough to get decent hits. But as you start to push it back and back, or, make the target smaller, that red dot really starts to help out a lot too. So,
true fact. I mean,
a lot of guys.
Rifles.
So, yeah, same with rifles. And I've said this before in the other. I'm pretty sure in the first time we had this talk. What I believe it brings to the table and to the fight on a pistol is the same thing it brings on a rifle. It just, the way you apply it has to be different because it's on a handgun, not on a rifle. We don't have 4 points of contact, and it's much less easy to index in the exact same spot every time and stuff like that. So we have to work a little bit more to get it, but it does the same thing on a pistol that it does on a rifle. Both eyes open, being able to stay threat focused and still make good solid hits quickly. Actually, I think as quickly we can shoot better, which means we can shoot faster, sooner.
Yeah, definitely important, right? How fast can we race to that last round and have the incident over with, right? Our volume of fire is able to go up, most likely using the dot.
Right.
If we're in that position where we actually need to use sights on it. But you were talking about old eyes, right? I've heard people's, one of the things out there as well, if you have an astigmatism, the dot is just this big, messy burst in front of you. Well, I do have an astigmatism in my left eye, which is, my dominant eye. And, like I see a starburst all the time. If you turn it down a little bit, it goes away a bit. But even when I have set to auto brightness, it's not the burst is not bad enough that it actually makes the dot less useful.
Well, I mean, I find that it's the target any different than the actual round circle would be. So, I've got astigmatism as well. I see the starburst, unless we're talking about, a big 6 mil dot or something like that. All I'm going to see is a splash of light. But that splash of light still allows me to achieve easily the level of precision that needs to be required to get the hits on the target. It's still a small dot, right? It's a starburst of light, but it's still going to be a small starburst of light that's over the actual target itself. And like you said, you can turn it down, and it's going to reduce it. But all it does is really what I find is it reduces the size of the print.
Yeah. Well, and then also that starburst, or when the lens gets wet, I call it a bowl of spaghetti and meatballs. But you still zeroed that starburst. So you put the starburst on where you want the bullet to go, and pull the trigger without disturbing the sights, right? Without moving the gun. So yeah, nothing's perfect. And guys that have vision issues, we also have a harder time seeing the front sight as we get older or whatever. So, I do believe, and most of the guys that have had issues, once they kind of figured out still prefer the red dot in those situations. A lot of times, like you guys probably already figured that out when you were shooting aim points on rifles, so you already knew this was going to be an issue, and you already had figured out how to deal with it. So it's something to be aware of. But most people who have already been using red dots on their carbines kind of understand that it's not the end of the world.
Like, I don't know if we hit on this one last time. Like closed emitter versus open emitter red dots.
Okay.
Like first, like so everybody understands what's the difference, in a closed emitter versus an open, and then pros and cons for each.
So, your open emitter would be your Trijicon RMR and SRO, some of the earlier Hollow Sun sights, the ones that look like, there you go, right there, look like an EOTech put on backwards, right? Those project the dot or the reticle onto a screen, so it's open, and it could get dirt or something, in there and kind of block that if it gets really bad. What we've seen is again, it's one of those things that it's got to be really, really extreme for it to really cause a problem. Have you guys ever seen it be, so nasty that you can't see anything?
I have.
I haven't either.
Only in your class when we intentionally.
Oh yeah, when we block it up to show it's not the end of the world, and that is also why we still advocate having iron sights on the gun, so that if something does go down, you have another reference point.
Right.
So those are some of the criticisms of the open emitter. They're more vulnerable to the elements, but the ones that are well made, it's still not that big of a problem. One of the bigger problems with most of the open emitters is that you have to remove the whole optic to change the battery on many of them, and that's a concern, especially in some law enforcement agencies that are looking to adopt them. They want to not have their officers not to have to take them off to affect mess with the zero of the optic just to change the battery. Closed emitter, superior because it's completely sealed. The most of them are some sort of LED based, so they're gonna also get very good battery life. But it's just everything's enclosed in one housing, so that the weather, and stuff like that just doesn't really affect it. But again, you can still get junk on the lens, but it's much easier to wipe off. The worst weather I've ever had in a training environment was up in Connecticut, and it was freezing cold and raining like crazy, and we were starting to have some issues with the open emitter optics almost filling full of water when they were in the holster. It was raining so bad. But
wow.
But the thing is the conditions were so bad that it was affecting human performance way more than it was affecting the equipment. The people were unable to perform, and we couldn't see out of our safety glasses. We were, in fear of falling and slipping in the mud, and with loaded guns. It was really bad. So once it gets to a certain point, it's not just an equipment issue, in my opinion. And most of the time, like I said, guys will draw it out of the holster, and there'll be water droplets all over it, and they'll see a bowl of spaghetti. I say, put the bowl of spaghetti on the target and pull the trigger, and they're going to make a hit. And it's not reckless. It's kind of like, hey, I can't get a really great sight picture, but I know this bullet's going to go where it needs to go, right? And then usually, as soon as you do that one time, all the water droplets have been blasted off of the optic, and the follow-on shots are much more easy to see. But yeah, open emitter, closed emitter. Closed is, I believe, the way of the future. That's what the law enforcement community I know is asking for, because they know it's going to be waterproof and stuff like that. And then the ability to change the batteries without having to take the optic off the gun is a big thing. So those two things, I believe, are where we're going with the evolution of these mini red dot optics, where some of them already are.
So let me ask you this. Is it harder to find a dot on a closed emitter versus an open emitter? And the reason I ask that is for the viewers, right? An open emitter, I just have one piece of glass. whereas the closed emitter, you have glass, a tube, and then another piece of glass. So that whole tube, is it harder or just the same as a line finding the dot, right?
Yeah, I think it's the same. Definitely not harder either way. Um, I think one of the things that makes a bigger difference on how well you can see the dot is, what the dot actually is. The ones that are a quality LED inside tend to be a little bit more crisp, is the feedback that I'm getting from people, and also that I feel. For example, the aim point, or but some of you guys have used some of the new acro, or not the acro, the hollow suns with the enclosed emitter. They're a real crisp dot because it's not a laser projected dot. It's an LED, so you can pick that up. And I don't know that has to do with it being a closed emitter versus what the emitter actually is. But I haven't seen any real difference. Screen size does make a difference. Lens size. Trijicon SRO has a much bigger piece of glass, but it's also not as durable as the RMR, and was never intended to be a ruggedized duty grade. But having that bigger piece of glass mainly makes up for if you have a sloppy presentation and it's not directly straight. When you drive the gun out, you have a little bit of flexibility. So,
right.
Get any more questions?
See if we've got any that come in. I don't think that in the past couple of minutes, that we've had those that have come in pertaining to that. I'm trying to remember what else we talked about on the last class. I think that we did discuss, dot size.
Yep.
I think I do remember discussing that. Yeah, I do remember that because I remember your recommendation being smaller better, and I found that just from experimenting with them for, been carrying obviously, for about the past year and a half or so, with one, but even prior to that, going into the rifle world, I've always preferred the smaller dots. I think that it makes where we're using them, it makes that shot a lot easier where I'm not overlaying and painting the actual target, but only painting a spot on the target. Yeah. So I do remember talking about that at this point. Different brands. I don't know if we really got into discussing different brands other than, bigger picture theory. But we've talked about the different technologies. Let's talk about some of the different models that may be open or closed with the different brands. Way kind of people have an idea of the different models, not necessarily model numbers, but just different series and lines that we may be discussing today.
Or especially the ones that you've seen in class that have run great.
Yeah.
My top three would be, and you guys know I'm an aim point guy, so I'm going to say aim point first. It's alphabetical. Let's put it that way. But is aim point, and right now they currently have one offering for the pistol. However, one of the first ones that I ever had mounted on a pistol was actually an aim point T1 on a Glock 17.
I remember that. Yeah,
those are actually. I could make the argument that it is the best pistol optic out there if you're not worried about the size. Best battery life, most settings, most rugged, blah, blah, blah. But it is bigger and bulkier than any of the other stuff either, as well. But Aimpoint, Trijicon, and Hollow Sun are, I say, in my opinion, top three. And one thing to note, though, is Trijicon, it's the RMR. They don't advertise their SRO, their other pistol optic, as a duty grade. It's considered like a competition, or I'm going to say hobby, but what's the word I'm looking for? Starts with a C, but like for competition pistol, recreational shooting and stuff like that. They still maintain that the RMR is the one that they call it the ruggedized miniature red dot optic. So that's in the name of it. So I want to make that kind of clear, is that, if you're going to carry this, look at the RMR, and it's also smaller too than the SRO. So if it's something you're going to CCW, and then Hollow Sun has been the sleeper for a while, and they have just been really getting aggressive and making better and better optics every year. And they started out right out of the gate making these things specifically to be mounted on pistols, not as any kind of an afterthought. Just like Aimpoint. Aimpoint started out, that Acro was designed to be a pistol optic. So, and they've taken a beating. I know I've never seen one of those go down either in a class. I own a few various different types of Holosun optics. 2 of them are pistol optics, and I know guys that have beat the crap out of them. And they just keep on going. So those right now, in my observation, are the top 3 that I would say if you're going to go out and put this on your everyday carry pistol, look at those.
Those are the 3 that I'm used to hearing.
Yeah, obviously there's some other brands around, but the reliability. We push that hard, right? If you're going to choose a gun, you're going to carry a gun. The expectation for it to go bang every time you're pressing the trigger should be 100%, right? They're machines. There's things that can go wrong. They do go wrong, but the expectation should be that the gun is capable of going bang 100% of the time. It's not any different when it comes to putting an optic on it, right? If you're going to carry an optic to allow you to be more efficient in certain situations, or to allow you to shoot at a higher level of precision, well, the expectation should be that it's capable of achieving 100% reliability with use. Accepting that whatever point of failure with an optic shouldn't be there, right? And so I think that I'm kind of in line with the same 3 brands and certain specific models on those. That we have the expectation that they're capable of 100% reliability in a fight with that firearm, because of what we've seen on the range, because of what you've seen on the range, right? You want repeated reliability. We want to make sure that the expectation's there.
Yep.
Definitely.
Go. I was going to say, and talking about there are specific models that you've seen that people have come into classes, and granted, people already know more or less that you're an Aimpoint guy. So I'm sure that a lot of your students coming into the class are probably pretty heavily weighted towards Aimpoint. But have you had students who come in with specific brands or models that you have seen choke or start to fail during the class?
Now, unfortunately, the ones I've seen fail the most are the Vortex, the lower end Vortex ones. Personally, I haven't seen a whole lot of the loopholed ones come in, the Delta points, but other friends of mine have not seen good results with them. I would say the most common on pistols still is going to be the RMRs. They were the first ones on the scene, the first ones to become really to popularize, if you will, mounting red dots directly on the slide like that. So it's kind of what people know and have seen around for a while. But when it comes to certain models of it, the RMR 06 was always the most common one. It had the 3 3.25 MOA dot, and now I'm seeing the RMR 09. I'm a big fan of being able to adjust it manually, not having to auto adjust. It works most of the time, but since I do a lot of low light and night vision stuff, that environment kind of tends to trick the optic into doing something that you might not want it to do. So, I just like being able to control the brightness, but I understand the draw for it, and it works for most people. For regular old EDC stuff, I think is fine. Can you guys hear me, or am I locked up? Am I the only one here, or am I the only one not here?
want
I heard something.
to.
Okay.
Does it?
All right. I guess we're having a few technical difficulties, but I understand you guys can hear me. I've been asked about zeros.
Don was
I hear
asking
you.
if we can hear.
Okay, cool.
More importantly, you know, I, uh, uh, we were having some connection issues with you, Don, but as everybody else that's tuning in tonight, if y'all been able to hear him for the past couple of minutes without any static, or have y'all been getting the same broken up feed that we've been seeing uh, as we sit here and try to get him back?
I'm still here. I can hear you guys, but you're a little bit broken
Looks
up.
like we may also be experiencing some issues coming into it.
So can you guys hear me? I'm gonna go ahead and talk, and hopefully you guys can hear me. I'm not really sure, but I've been asked to talk a little bit about zeros. What I've found, and this is a lot of my peers and friends that also, do a lot of shooting with this. We all kind of agree that 25 yards is a good spot to be zeroed at with these pistols. I don't know if I'm here or not. But the problem with the 25-yard zero is a lot of us, until we're warmed up, can't shoot a decent enough group at 25 to make sure that we're zeroed. So what I do in class and what I do in my own practice is I'll zero point of aim, point of impact at 10 yards. 10 yards and 25 yards really don't change much. But I can shoot a good enough group at 10 yards, standing, freestyle, slow fire, to make sure that I'm zeroed well. And then I back up to 25 once I'm warmed up a little bit and make sure that I'm shooting still center of where I need to hit. And then if I do need to change it up and down, I do it from there. And the biggest thing you'll see is as you back up further, your left and right windage are what you're likely to see change, because the little things up close get magnified when you get back. One or two clicks here and there can get you right in the dead center. I don't know where the other guys went. Not really sure what's going on here. I might still be on, and I might not be. Okay, I'm getting a text saying that you guys have me. So I'm waiting to hear back if the other guys are going to make it back on. I know we're getting close. Okay. Well, did you guys all hear me about the zero, the 25-yard zero? If not, I'll talk about it again. Barret, Deryck, did you guys hear me talk about zeroing? Okay. I guess you guys got all that about the zeroing then. One of the big things to remember about that is, like I said, okay, Deryck and Deryck and Barret are trying to get things back up on their end. They're telling me by text that you guys can still hear me, so I'll keep on talking about some things that I think are worth reminding and stuff. So remember, I just mentioned zero, 25 on all the way up to point blank. What I've seen is negligible. I'm still aiming center and making hits at the same distance. We could bust out ballistic calculators and all that stuff, but I wouldn't worry about it. But do your initial zero and at 10. If you can do it standing, do it. If you want to do it on a bench off of a backpack or a sandbag, that's cool too. One of the beauties of these things is we can zero them. And most of our defensive sights, iron sights on the guns, we can't zero. So that's one of the things I like about it as well, is I can actually tweak this thing so that it's going to send that bullet exactly where I want it to go because I've zeroed it. All right. As I back up, I'm going to start to see my left and right deviations, and I can fix those in the optic too, as long as I'm not shanking the shot. So I've been asked 1/3 or full co-witness. Talk about iron sights and how tall they need to be. I don't care. I'm very agnostic about that. If you're going to have backup iron sights with your red dot, they need to be tall enough that you can use them. Okay. I'm pretty sure what you're going to find is they're not going to be in your way, so you don't want to worry about being too tall. I've got some really tall suppressor height sights. The one thing to remember is the red dot on the optic and the iron sights are two entirely different sighting systems. So you can't expect to have to line them up, and don't even try. Okay, the irons are there so that if something fails on your optic, the battery fails, the glass is broken, or something like that, you have them as a safety net to help you out. They don't need to be lined up with your red dot or in a certain spot. Find what works with your combination of optic and irons. But the big thing is make sure that you can see those irons, or else they're not going to be very useful to you when you do need them. But don't worry about trying to line all three of those things up, because that's not the way you do it. You don't do it that way on your rifle. We also don't do it on our pistol that way. One of the last things I want to remind everybody is when you get these things and you start to put it together, if there's instructions, read them. Okay. Some of them come with different length screws to go with different types of pistols, or some of your pistol mounting plates come with different length screws for different optics that you may put on. Take a look at make sure you're using the right length of screw so you're getting all the right thread engagement and you're getting it nice and tight. And then the other thing too is use some sort of thread locker on these things. You want to torque them down about the same way you would a set of scope rings or a mount for your scope, the screws on there. They don't have to be too tight, but you need to use some sort of thread locker because that reciprocation of the slide going back and forth creates a lot of vibration, and it can jar those and just make them start to work themselves loose. And a couple drops of Loctite will save you a lot of headaches over time. And most of these, even the ones that you have to take the optic off the gun, they're good for a year. You don't really change the batteries more than once a year. Let's see what these guys are saying. All right. So, and that's all I got to say about that. I guess it's time to go. Don't forget all the sponsors. I know Deryck and Barret will have all that stuff down below later on. And those of you guys that are watching this live, thanks for bearing with some of the issues that we had. Appreciate you guys, and hopefully I get to come back later.